Good morning, Morai B'Rabotai. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are on Daf Samech Zayin, Amud Aleph, the bottom of the Amud, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. We just discussed the Sugya of, started the Sugya of Noten Tam Lepegam, and we're continuing really on that. Today's Amud is been dedicated for Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid. Has also been dedicated for Refuah Shelema of Rabat Esther, that should have Refuah Shelema Amen. So we last discussed the Shita of Resh Lakish, the 2 different ways that the Shita of Resh Lakish was presented in the Gemara. Whether or not when you have a ma'achal, a mixture, that some isur fell into it, and it was not enhancing the taste. It's not something that would enhance the taste of the subtotal of the food that we have. And Resh Lakish, in the first way of understanding, is believed to have said that we have to have a perfectly well food, something that's not missing any spice, any salt, any ingredients, and the mixture of isur is what ruined the tam, is what destroyed the good taste. Or a more lenient shita, that Resh Lakish believes that the subtotal taste, if it's not good, then the whole thing is mutar. Even if the reason potentially is helped with other ingredients being messed up. As long as the end result does not taste good, even though that the isur, the prohibited food, is not by itself enough to ruin the food's taste, but it's also caused, the bad taste is also caused by missing some salt and some spice and some ingredients, or having too much of them. We don't care really why the reason is. As long as the end result doesn't taste good, noten tam lepegam, mutar, which is more lenient. Those are 2 ways of Resh Lakish. The language of Resh Lakish is going to become very important in just a few moments. The language of Resh Lakish was noten tam lepegam she'amru, this that they said noten tam lepegam is mutar, is talking about end result. As long as the end result is bad, the whole thing is mutar. So says the Gemara, another memra in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Abahu, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Abahu said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol shetamu mamasho asur. You have 2 different cases of having a mixture of isur that you can't take out. In other words, if you have isur mixed with heter, you have 2 cold cuts of heter, and then you have a cold cut of isur that got mixed with them, and you know which one it is. So what do? Just take it out and yalla. By the way, if you don't know which one is which, then what's the halacha? It's a famous machlokit between Rosh and Rashba when it comes to halachot of ta'aruvot. We learn from the pasuk in Torah, acharei rabim la'atot, that you go after rov. So if you have 2 kosher Bet Yosef, nice mahadirin cold cuts, and you have 1 treif, mamash, pig, what's the halacha? All of them are mutar. Now, according to Rashba, you still would not be able to eat all of them together, because at the end of the day, we recognize that there's something treif here, right? But you could take one of them and say, okay, this one comes from rov, mutar, shakol niya bidvaro. Come tomorrow and say, oh, this, another one, also mutar, comes from rov, probably the other one is shakol niya bidvaro. And come again a 3rd time, say, probably one of the ones I had already was the isur. This is also coming from rov, mutar. Right? And that will be mutar. Now, Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, says, no, it's even much more than that. Acharei Rabim La'atot means the Torah determines the reality based on Rov. If you have a mixture, you cannot determine you cannot tell, it doesn't have to be 1,000. If you have 1,000 cold cuts, that's mutar, and one of them is asur. What's the halacha? You cook all of them together, eat them together, hazaku baruch, because it's nepach leheter. The isur also turns into heter in the halachic eye, and the same would be with 2 cold cuts and one the same thing. You can put all of them in one sandwich, and the whole thing. That's machlokes Rashba, machlokes Rashba and the Rosh. But nevertheless, we go after the Rov. So now, if you can't take it out, there are 2 scenarios. Says that's the meaning. It's not batel berov. There's taste, right? It's not batel berov. It's not solid. The case that we discuss is when you have yavesh beyavesh, when you have pieces of solid mixed with each other. But if you have something cooked into a cholent, I don't know. There are pieces of isur there. But, and there's taste also. So, it's asur to eat that. But what is the level of isur? Do I get lashes? Do I get malkut on this? So says Rabbi Yochanan, kol shetamu mamasho asur, velokin alav. If you have tam of isur, you cook the thing in the cholent, and now the taste of the isur is in the cholent. But there's also the isur itself in the cholent mix that you can't take out. Now, when I sit to eat this cholent, says Rabbi Yochanan, first of all, is asur. Secondly, you get lashes on it because you're eating pieces of isur. But that's only, says the Gemara, bichtei achilat pras. That's only if you have kazayit, a kazayit of isur bichtei achilat pras. Let's explain this. There is a machloket Tanaim in Mesechet Eruvin daf pei bet. What exactly is the level of isur to get lashes for? And there, one shita holds that you have to have, let's explain it like this. Kazait bichtei achilat pras is what the Gemara says. What is achilat pras is machloket. Now, achilat pras means eating half a loaf of bread. Pras means half, right? Achilat pras means the time that it takes to have half a loaf of bread, right? So what's half a loaf of bread? One shita in the Gemara holds that a loaf of bread is 6 betzas worth of nefach. It is 6 eggs. Size of 6 eggs is a loaf. So therefore, chatzi of that, a pras of that would be 3 volume of 3 eggs. And the other shita in the Gemara says no. Kikar, a loaf of bread is 8 eggs, a volume of 8 eggs. So therefore, pras would be 4 eggs. It's machloket in the Gemara. This machloket in Gemara becomes also machloket rishonim, hatu paskin. Rashi says that we go after the bigger shiur of 4. Rambam says you go after the shiur that is smaller, is 3. The way you remember Rashi is 3 words, Rambam is 4 words, and this is the other way around, right? So that is achilat pras. That's the eating of a pras, a half a loaf of bread. Now, what's the exact timeline for it? The Khatam Sofer writes it's 9 minutes, right? But then he says, if you eat it fast, it's 2 minutes, right? And like all the other poskim say something in between 2 and 9. Usually, generally speaking, Chacham Badia says 3.5, 4 minutes. That's the more accepted shita. That if you have in this cholent kazayit of isur bichtei achilat pras, when you're eating like a normal person, right, and in 3 or 4 minutes you have kazayit of isur that you have eaten, then you even, not only it's asur, but you get lashes on it, you get malkut on it as well, right? So that's the first part of Rabbi Yochanan. That's the first case, right? The second case is ta'amo velo mamasho, top of samach zayin amud bet. Ta'amo velo mamasho, if you have taste, but there's no mamash. For instance, you had some piece of chelev that fell into the cholent, and chelev is fat. So the whole thing melted away. Now it's mixed. The taste of chelev is in the cholent, but there's no mamash. There's no piece of chelev, right? The whole thing has been mixed or a little milk that fell in, made it basar b'chalav. There's no piece of milk. The whole thing is mixed with the food. So when you have ta'am, but you don't have a piece, a mamash there, it's asur ve'en lokin alav. It is asur to eat it, of course, but there's no malkut really there to be had. And then the Gemara brought this Rabbi Yochanan for the following words: Ve'im riba ta'am lepegam mutar. And if it added ta'am lepegam, then it's mutar. That means if this isur that you put in added bad taste to the mixture, and now the whole thing tastes horrible, then noten ta'am lepegam mutar. So of course, first thing is we see from here that in the whole realm of this conceptual halacha of noten ta'am lepegam mutar or asur, Rabbi Yochanan is another name yet on the list that holds noten ta'am lepegam mutar, right? But it's more than that. Says the Gemara, why do you have to say such a strange language? Im riba ta'am lepegam, if you added ta'am lepegam, just say if there's noten ta'am lepegam and call it a day. Why can't you just be normal and use a proper language? Says the Gemara, Velema im natan ta'am lepegam mutar. Why don't you just say the regular language all of us would use? You say im natan ta'am lepegam mutar. What do you mean riba ta'am? He added ta'am lepegam. Says the Gemara, it's exactly coming to tell you decided between the two Resh Lakishes that we have. You remember how we had the Resh Lakish? We started the shiur today with one way of saying Resh Lakish was that everything has to be perfect, and the spicing and the salt and the ingredients, and the only thing that's the pegam is the isur. That isur by itself alone ruined the whole time, right? But if it's a mixture, the reason that the food tastes bad at the end of the day is a combination of the isur ruining the taste and also other ingredients were not right. Then we don't say noten ta'am lepegam mutar. That's the first way of saying Resh Lakish. The second way of saying Resh Lakish was, no, we don't care why it's noten ta'am lepegam. If at the end of the day it tastes bad, it's mutar. Even though it's a combination of the isur being noten ta'am lepegam and also ingredients being missing and messed up, right? So you see, it says the Gemara from this Rabbi Yochanan, like the second Resh Lakish, that if the isur is adding to the fact that the combination of everything ends up being noten ta'am lepegam, even though that we understand that there are other things missing and messed up also in the ingredients and the spices and the salt and pepper of the food, even with all of that, still the food will be mutar at the end. Im riba ta'am lepegam, says the Gemara, even though that there are other factors that they cause the tam pagum, the bad taste in the food, still would be mutar vehilcheta kelishna batra de Resh Lakish. And halacha is like the second language of Resh Lakish, that it will be mutar regardless of what the reason is. Amar Rav Kana. Rav Kana said, Midivrei kulam nilmad, we learn from all of these that noten ta'am lepegam mutar. All of the Amoraim that we had in the past Amud, like we started, Rashi brings a list of here, Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel we started with, and then Rabba Bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rab Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Resh Lakish that we just had. All of them, you see, you prove from every one of these concepts and the comments that they made that noten ta'am lepegam is utar. So before we go on, the Gemara is saying this for a reason. But before we say the reason, Abaye puts a pause on this. He says, wait a second. Resh Lakish I don't agree with. All the other ones is pashut, is clear. But Resh Lakish used a very specific language. You remember 10 minutes ago we said, remember the language of Resh Lakish? Resh Lakish said, this that they said, notentam lefegam she'amru, that they said, it's only in this case. So says Abaye, why does Resh Lakish says notentam lefegam she'amru? He's telling you, I'm not paskening this way. But even they who say notentam lefegam is mutar, they are only saying it in this scenario. So Resh Lakish himself, you cannot tell me, holds notentam lefegam is mutar. You see that from his language. That's what Abaye just puts into parentheses before we go on with the Gemara. So says the Gemara, let's read this again. Amar Rav Kana, midivre kulam, from the words of every Amorah in the past Amud and half, nilmad, we learn notentam lefegam mutar. That notentam lefegam is mutar. That's the halacha. Amar Abaye, this is the parentheses. Abaye says, Bishlama, mikulu lechaye. All of them I agree with you. Aside from Resh Lakish. Ela de Resh Lakish, I don't agree with because it says, Amru kamar. He says, this notentam lefegam that they said. So he's coming to tell you that I don't hold like that. Veleh lo svira leh. And he himself does not hold like that. So now the Gemara goes on with what the Gemara really wanted to say. Michlal, the asur. But you have to tell me, from all of these Amoraim, you see the halacha is, not the time of Gam is mutar. Why do you have to tell me that? Because of course you're coming to take sides within a machloket. That there is a mandamar that holds not the time of Gam is mutar. There is another mandamar that holds not the time of Gam is asur. And I say, from this oldest Amoraim, you see like this. Right? In exclusion of the other one. Who is the other one? Who in the world does hold that not the time of Gam is asur? Where is that shita? Says the Gemara, Michlal deikal mandamar not the time of Gam asur? You're suggesting that there is a mandamar that holds not the time of Gam is asur? Must is in, of course. Vatanya, this is the Braita that states clearly the Tanaim, this is Machloket Tanaim. It's Machloket Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon. V'hatanya, echad notentam lepegam ve'echad notentam leshevach, asur divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says, doesn't make a difference. If something gives taste, if an element of Isur gives taste into a food, I don't care if the particles of Isur are notetam leshevach or lepegam, the whole thing is asur. If you take a tray food and you use it, if you go to a Airbnb and you use a pot there that they have, your food is chalas, asur. Notetam lepegam, doesn't make any difference. If it was used 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 days ago, 2 minutes ago, doesn't make a difference. The whole food is asur. Right? Rav Moshe Feinstein actually had a very interesting she'ela. Some Baal Tshuva, from Jew, asked him that his grandma passed away, right? Well, his mother, and he inherited a very, very expensive, fine set of china, very expensive, old, like heirloom from the family that he wanted to keep, both because it was very expensive and very yakar, also because he has sentimental value. But is keli cheres, is china. They did not keep kashrut. His mother, his grandmother did not keep kashrut. So is it mutar, is it asur, right? As this is keli cheres really. So it's a fascinating question. Rav Moshe Feinstein goes to bring no less than four different combinations of leniencies, and besach hakol, at the end of the day, he says do this and this and this, and it will be mutar. He gives him a path to keep the set and use the set, even though that's klicheres. We usually say yishaver, it should be broken. But again, the details of that tshuva aside, but it starts from here. Rabbi Meir holds, notentam lepegam, shevach, the whole thing is asur. Rabbi Shimon says, no. Leshevach asur, lepegam mutar. Only notentam leshevach is asur, but notentam lepegam is mutar. Now, where do you get this from? Each one of them, of course, has their own raya from the Gemara. My time with Rabbi Meir, where does Rabbi Meir see this? Where does he learn this from? Gamar migiule ovdei kochavim. He learns it from hechsher kelim, coming up Pesach, very much time appropriate. He learns it from giule ovdei kochavim. What's giule ovdei kochavim? That means the Torah says that when you go and take over, you conquer the goyim, the Torah says you have to bring their vessels and kasher them. Whatever comes into water, that means hagala, you do it with water. Whatever goes with esh, that you could do libun, then you kosherize it with esh, with fire, which means libun. That's what the Torah says. So says Rabbi Meir, Migiule ovdei kochav, giule ovdei kochavim, lav noten ta'am lepegamhu. When you went and you conquered a place, your days in war, and then you took their kelim, you bring it home, it's already a day after, right? Stam kelim enam bnei yoman v'paskin. Regular kelim are not bnei yoman, are not within 24 hours use, and yet the Torah says, if you want to use these kelim, right? We have to kasher them. Hagala, libun. You can't just use them. Why don't you just wait 2 hours and let it be 24 hours and yalla, use them? Why does the Torah have to say you have to kosherize them? Must be, says Rabbi Meir. You see from here that waiting 24 hours does not help. It doesn't help. If it did help, what do you have to kasher them? Just wait. So says the Gemara, V'asar rachmana. Still Hashem says asur. Hachanami, here also lo shena. It doesn't make a difference. If you have noten tam lepkam, also would be asur. Ve'idach, Rabbi Shimon, how does he answer this? This seems to be a good proof from the Torah. So what does Rabbi Shimon say to Rabbi Meir on that? Ve'idach keder Rav Huna. The other one says, wait, you... it's like Rav Huna already has asked this for generations later. Of course, Rav Huna is a Amorah. But says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon would hold like what Rav Huna said. Rav Chia, the Amar Rav Huna, Rav Chia, lo asra Torah ela kedera bat yoma. The Torah only prohibited a kedera, a pot that is bat yoma. It was used on that day. In other words, the Torah says, yeah, if you want to wait, you could actually wait 24 hours. But if you want to use it now, you have to kosherize it. Alternatively, you can wait 24 hours and it's good to go. But if you want to use this kedera that you just took from this Canaanite that was cooking treif in it 2 minutes ago, so then you could wash it well, clean it well, do hagala, and yalla, you could go. Because ben yoma within 24 hours is not lepikam. Ve'idach kedrabat yoma nami yefshad l'ropak bapurta. Rabbi Meir says even if you want to say that, still, even a kedrabat yoma, at the end of the day, when you cook something new with new ingredients in it, it's not going to be a great taste. At the end of the day, it's going to be pogem a little bit. And still you see the Torah conceptually rejects this and requires you to do kashrut, and therefore noten tam lepikam is asur. So that's as far as that pasuk in the Torah of giule ovdei kochavim. Now, what is the reasoning of Rabbi Shimon? In other words, this is where Rabbi Meir sees in the Torah that noten tam lepikam is asur. But if you ask Rabbi Shimon, where do you see that noten tam lepikam is mutar? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Shimon Maitama, the Tanya. Lo tochelu kol nevela. The pasuk says, do not eat any nevela. Lager asher bish'arecha titenela v'achala o machore lochri. You should give it to a ger that lives within your boundaries, a ger toshav, and he will eat it. But the pasuk reads juxtaposition of words. Nevela, kol nevela lager. Right? Lo tochlu kol nevela. Lager asher b'sha'arecha titenela. Kol nevela lager, says the Gemara, kol ha're'uya lager keruya nevela. Anything that's fit for your neighbor, your dear friend, the ger toshav next door, that's considered nevela. If it's pagum, if it's disgustingly rotten away, and it tastes and it smells horrible, that's not considered nevela, right? She'en re'uya leger. If it's not fit for giving it to the ger, eina kruya nevela. Then it's no longer called a nevela. Which would mean, if you have noten tam lepegam, is that considered nevela? No, it's mutar. It's no longer considered nevela. It's like afar. It's like dirt. It's disgusting, but it's not asur, because no longer nevela when it's not edible, when it's not ra'ui to eat it. Rabbi Meir also deals with that. Rabbi Meir says, he says, no, that is coming to tell you that if it's rotten from the core, from the beginning, that's what. If it was good in the beginning, if the taste was a good taste, when it was cooked, now that's not in tam. Lepegam also is not going to change. But Rabbi Shimon says, wait a second, you need to teach me that something that is from the beginning disgusting and serucha, it's rotten, that's mutar, that I know already. You don't have, the Torah doesn't have to teach me that something that's rotten is mutar. But Rabbi Shimon serucha meikara lo slicha miuta. Afra be'almahu. Says that's like dust, like dirt, is not, you don't need to teach me that that's mutar. Amar, well, this is where we're going to end it for today. This is still opening another beautiful door to things that were good in the beginning and then they went bad. The mixture that was shevach and then it became lepegam, whether or not will be asur, but Hashem will continue this in the days to come. If you could